Hello and welcome to West Indies on 99.94 Cricket Every Day. My name is Mashal St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and with me as ever is Santoki Nagilendran, the other half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies on 99.94 is your new home for West Indies cricket content, and we'll be dropping into your podcast feed on YouTube or on the 99.94 app several times every week. So like, rate, review, share, subscribe. You know the drill by now, and thanks for joining Cricket's Conversation. So, Santoki, you and I have been talking in the WhatsApp last few days, talking about West Indies cricket, this, that, and all of the above. And we were talking about what's the next thing we're going to do on West Indies on 99.94? What's the next big topic to talk about? And as we were going back and forth, we were seeing clips of Carl Mayers bowling a booming in-swinger in the T20, the MI Emirates team in the UAE League, which is basically a West Indies side, smashing over 200 runs. And I sent you a message, Santoki, and I think I posted something on Twitter basically saying it feels like this T20 cricket thing is just... it's just never ending now, Santoki. Like, you can't turn left or right without seeing another T20 league. There was the Nepalese one earlier in the month. Now we got the UAE one. We got the SAT20 one. Then we're gonna have to try fit in some West Indies cricket in between all of this. And the thing is, Santoki, we're not dinosaurs. So relatively speaking, we're young in this cricket game. Relatively speaking, and I just wonder, Santoki, when is too much T20 cricket? Yeah, when is so too much of it too much, if you get what I mean? And I guess that'll be my intro for you, Santoki. Take that one away.
Wait, well, Mash, I think we've reached that point at the moment. As you said, we've just had the Nepalese Premier League was in December. A few West Indians, as always, took part in that. We've currently got the Bangladesh Premier League, the new South African T20 League. You've still got the Big Bash League going on, and then you've got the big UAE League going on. So I guess what we're trying to say, Mash, in this, as you said, we're not dinosaurs. We understand how T20 cricket works, but this just feels like a pivotal moment in cricketing history. I mean, look how many franchise tournaments are going on at the moment, and it's kind of like we just want to know, or we've sort of been discussing amongst ourselves, one, who is watching all of these leagues? Like, is there anyone in the world who is watching all? Like, is there someone who has an Abu Dhabi Knight Riders kit and then takes it off and starts supporting, the Dakar Warriors or whatever they're called in the Bangladesh? Like, is there someone who's so emotionally invested in all of these leagues that each match and result matters? Or is it a case of what is the plan of all these leagues? Is it a case of, okay, we get the local market, so similar to me and you, Mash, we watch the CPL, we watch every single game pretty much. We follow the CPL because it's essentially our local franchise league, the league we have interest in, and then we kind of take an interest in other leagues if a West Indian does well generally, but we don't really follow the other leagues in as much detail. So is it a case of that is what they're expecting all fans to be like, or are they expecting some consistency in terms of fans supporting, the Mumbai Indians team in the UAE or the Mumbai Indians team that's representative in the South African League? What is sort of the ideal demographic they're targeting here is the first one to ask. And the second one, Mash, I'll put to you to answer first. Do you think the players really care about what franchise league they're playing for? Like, if Carl Mayers takes these wickets for, I don't even know was it Durban, the Durban Giants or something like that? If he takes wickets,
I think it's Durban Superchargers or something. I don't even know what they're called.
All right, Durban. When Carl Mayers takes a wicket for Durban Superchargers, is it a case of he feels the passion, he's kissing the badge, it means a lot to him, or is it literally a case of I'm making money from this, let me go along with it? So, firstly, Matt, from a player perspective, how would you kind of imagine players envision playing for all these different franchises?
And the thing is, Santoki, people will listen to this episode and think we're just mocking it just for the sake of it. But these are genuine questions. Because let's deal with that players one first. And I'm really glad you've asked that question, because that's exactly what I was thinking, and that's what prompted me to tweet on our Caribbean Cricket Podcast handle the other day, saying I've had enough of it all. Because you're using Carl Mayers, but I might even use like Akil Hussain. A couple of weeks ago, he's bowling for, I think, Melbourne Renegades or something in the Australian one, the Big Bash League. Fast forward now, I think is now with the Night Riders or Abu Dhabi Night Riders in this international UAE league or whatever it's called. And I just don't get, we're not professional athletes, obviously, but I just don't get how you jet set from team to team and give a damn. I don't get it. Obviously, the incentive is the big bag. So I get it in terms of money, but how do they motivate themselves for like, how do you motivate yourself to go from tournament to tournament to like all of these entities, these teams are all pointless to me. Unless you're someone like a Jason Holder who effectively is signed with a franchise group. I don't okay, so Rodman Powell's a good example. Rodman Powell is currently playing for, is it, I don't even know what they're called. Is it Dubai Capitals or something? I think they might be called that. And obviously in IPL, I think he plays for, is it Delhi Capitals? I can't remember what that team's called either, right? So if you're someone like a Rodman Powell who's a quote unquote lucky enough to be part of a franchise group, I maybe can just about get it. How you'd be like, well, boy, I'm kissing the shirt because I rep this franchise group all over the world, and I know all the people behind the scenes, and the big boss man, I know him because I'm repping his group. If you're in that position, like a Rodman Powell or Jason Holder for the Royals group, I just about get it. I can just about understand how you'd build up some kind of passion. If you're just signing like a Dre Russ from team to team to team, look at Dre Russ. Dre Russ flew to Australia, played 4 games, ducked out, went home for Christmas, flew over to UAE to play however many games he's going to play in this UAE league. Then he'll duck out from that to go to IPL, play all that season, then duck out from, like, where's the, I don't, do we need to get a player on, Santoki? We actually need to get a player on to legitimately. They'll never give an honest answer because they'd give us the PR answer. I've always cherished playing for the Dubai Capitals. It's been a dream of mine to pull on. They'll give us some nonsense PR answer. But I would love a player who's maybe quit from it now, isn't no longer on the circuit, and who just go, you know what, this was just about the bag. The way that the nature of cricket is now, it benefits us as players. We're all searching for the big bag, and that's all that matters. But then I put back to you then, Santoki. Let me put this question back to you. If you're a fan, as you said, I guess, who's the person or who are the, other than the stats guys, and I'm not digging out at any of you lot who may be watching this, but other than like the kind of stats guys who spend like most of their time on Twitter telling us about who does this in the power play and who hits well against off break bowling and at this stage, apart from them people, who cares? Who actually cares from tournament to tournament what's actually happening? And I genuinely mean that, Santoki. Who cares?
Well, yeah, this is the thing. I think, like, what we've seen in South Africa, I will give credit to the South African T20 League. The crowds have been big from the glimpses that I've caught. There's been a lot of fans, and, South African cricket has reached low points in the last few months with the test side. So this seems like, something refreshing for South African cricket. But beyond that, Mash, the whole concept of T20 cricket was concise, compact, and short. So if you are following 4 leagues, even if you're following 2 leagues, you're essentially needing to spend 8 to 12 hours a day watching 12 T20 cricket, which essentially defeats the whole purpose of it. So I would love to know, as you said, people involved in stats or in the industry are going to have to take an interest in kind of what's going on in the different leagues. But purely fans who watch cricket for entertainment, how many are actually watching these leagues? And more importantly, Mash, are these leagues sustainable? Do we see in 3 years, is the Bangladesh Premier League still going to exist? The Nepalese Premier League, the players didn't get paid. A lot of them left early. Sikandar Raza from Zimbabwe left early because he didn't get paid. It feels like that kind of seems like a short-term league. So is the competition is all this competition even good for T20 cricket? Doesn't it not mean that some leagues will be unsustainable and drop out? And, those are sort of questions. This obviously isn't a one-off year. Next year, we'll be having the same conversation. There might even be another T20 league popping up to add to it, all the schedules at the moment. But, Mash, I just want to touch on what you said, actually. It's quite interesting. So with Andre Russell, he plays for franchises. As you said, he played for, I think, Melbourne Renegades, similar to Kill, saying for 3 games he played. And now he's going on to UAE League. The important thing with Russell is he doesn't play for West Indies. So in actual fact, it'd be interesting, as you said, we'll probably never get a true answer. In terms of cricket, does he just see it as something, I collect the bag, and I move on franchise to franchise, because there's no context of playing for an international side. At least with maybe an Akil Hussain, you can say, all right, he collects the bag when he needs to, but West Indies cricket is sort of his sort of national thing that he can play for, gives him context. You know, he's got the World Cup, something you can genuinely play with pride for. But in the case of Russell, is it just a case of cricket has just become a gig where you go franchise to franchise, you just pick up the money, and essentially you're not really going to be that passionate about the franchise, but essentially the main aim of cricket is to make as much money as you can, because he's not playing for West Indies, so he doesn't have that patriotic aspect to his career at the moment. That would be something I'd be very, very interested to find out. And is that also a shift in mentality with players? Are they just going to suddenly think, or not suddenly, over the coming years think, you know what, international cricket's not really for me. The patriotism is not worth it. I'd rather just, you know, cricket, I've got to make as much money as I can. I've got a short career. Let me just go franchise league to franchise league, play a few games here and there and pick up big money. Because at the moment, based on the calendar, you could probably spend 10, 11 months going gig to gig in franchise leagues and picking up money. So where does, what I'm trying to say, Matt, is a convoluted answer. What I'm trying to say is, where does international cricket fit into all of this in terms of players?
Do you know, that's something I can't answer in the short time we have before the breaks. Let's take a quick break, and then on the other side of the break, let's try delve into that question a bit more.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
Now, before I answer that question you posed before the break, Santoki, let me just say this. We're not here either to be like one of those kind of cricket people who's like, oh, this is the primacy of Test cricket. That's the truest form of the game, and that's all that matters. No, I'm not here to make that argument either. I'm just here to say that right now, T20 feels like it's completely oversaturated. Now, to answer the earlier question you posed about players like Andre Russ, for example, Santoki, I guess I kind of return to an earlier point in so much as I think possibly some of the players might have sensed that this can only last for so long. And if I was a player in that situation, I couldn't blame them in terms of just going from team to team to team to tournament to tournament. Just make hay whilst you can, because there's got to be a shelf life to this, Santoki. Because this bubble, to me, cannot last. Only some of these leagues can possibly sustain themselves over time. I think if we look at something like a CPL, how long did it take a league like CPL, which I would say is actually worth watching because CPL at least is unique. We at least with CPL have the selling point of we're a vibes league. No other league around the world brings the off-field vibes that CPL can bring. So at least CPL's got a tagline that sets itself apart from every other tournament that goes on in a calendar year. But look how long it took CPL to really say, you know what, we're breaking even, or we're making a tiny piece of peas off this, right? So every time these tournaments start up, I'm looking at them thinking, you're not even making money out of this stuff yet. And how long are these franchise owners prepared to put their money in when they're not even making any real dividends off it? And it just feels like a cash cow for the players that is eventually going to implode. And in that sense, no one can blame the players. Somebody is out. These people, these money bags guys, are out there basically saying, everyone take a big bag for basically no work, right? There's not even, who even cares if you win the tournament? Like, yes, you're going to get a big bag anyway. So everyone come gather around Father Christmas time, come take a big bag. That's what it feels like. But I guess, and I put this then back to you, Santoki. Obviously, there'll be the people who say, but IPL's different because IPL's this, IPL's that. And maybe in some senses, yes, IPL is a multi-million industrial complex that will outlive everybody. And you've always said that you think IPL will eventually just consume the whole calendar at some point in time. And I've always railed against you saying that, Santoki. But check this out. I actually wonder, Santoki, if the way forward with I can't believe I'm about to say this. I actually cannot believe I'm about to say this. The only way I see T20 cricket being sustainable going forward in terms of these leagues is if IPL actually gets longer. I cannot believe I'm saying that. But hear me out. It's the longest one right now. It's the one that has the most, that gets the most money. It's the one with the biggest viewership. And I guess it's almost the one with the most context because of just how much money and investment and stakeholders are kind of, it basically controls international cricket schedules in essence, right? If IPL extended so that it became like an NBA season, if you catch my drift, then I could just about understand the point of T20 leagues. That doesn't, by the way, I'm not saying I want that to happen, but I guess what I'm saying to you, Santoki, is this whole thing of a UAE. So what have we got? Nepalese League, Bangladesh League, South Africa League, UAE League, CPL, Pakistani League, 100, T20 Blast. Did I say PSL? That this all before we include IPLs. That's at least 10 leagues I think I've just mentioned. And then there's somehow you have to fit international cricket all around that. BBL, 11 leagues. Santoki, come on, man. It don't make no sense.
Listen. With this episode as blacklisted us from ever working with any T20 franchise. I think you know what? Yeah, to be honest, Mash, I think with the IPL as well, I think one important USP it has is if you want to watch Virat Kohli, the biggest cricketer in terms of fandom in the world, you're not going to see him in any of these franchise leagues. He only plays in the IPL. All the Indian players only play in the IPL. So the IPL has that novelty as well of you can only see certain players. Whereas, you know, like a Dre Russ or a Holder from a West Indies perspective, you can see them at numerous franchise leagues. So that novelty, in essence, you kind of lose the importance of it, because if a Kohli plays in the IPL, you know you have to savor that period because he's not going to play in any other franchise leagues. If you miss one league with a Dre Rush, you know in a few weeks there'll be another where you can see him. So IPL has that novelty factor, and I do think IPL will consume the cricket calendar. I've always said it. I think within the next 5 years we'll see IPL 6 to 9 months. Training camps of players off season when they're not playing, that kind of thing, and taking an NBA style model. We're kind of already seeing it with Mumbai Indians setting up a training camp this summer in England for the likes of Daryl Brevis from South Africa and those players to kind of groom them and get them prepared for playing in the IPL in the following year. So it is sort of going that way, Mash. But like you said, I also agree that with these other leagues, there does seem to be a very short-term aspect to it in terms of I don't believe in 5 years if we'll see a Bangladesh Premier League exist, for instance. So there is that aspect, and it kind of just, as we titled the episode, it's an oversaturation, Mash. I just don't know, like, in terms of where is the context at this point? Where is the context of cricket? And how can a sport fundamentally exist without this context? You know, in football, the Premier League, we've got 9 months of it. That is the context. Then you've got the World Cup or international football. Within that, it just feels at the moment bits and pieces everywhere, and there's no context to it. And it's important to us because obviously we like T20 cricket. We're not anti T20 cricket. We appreciate it, the format. But we also savour international cricket, and it just feels like the balance has shifted towards this T20 franchise cricket at the sacrifice of international cricket. But when you're not sure about the context of T20 cricket and just how long term it is, you're thinking, is it a wise move to kind of put international cricket on the back burner for franchise cricket, which might only exist in this form for the next few years? I mean, in 5 years, if three of these leagues that are playing at the moment don't exist anymore, you've already reduced the importance of international cricket so much. I think it'd be hard to bring it back to sort of the pinnacle that it was. So I think cricket has a lot to think about, but ultimately money has the final say, Mash. So I think if anything, realistically, we'll only ever see more leagues pop up over time. And I don't think this will be sort of a one-off year where we bemoan the oversaturation of T20 cricket and then next year normal service resumes. I think this is just the start of a growing trend towards more and more T20 cricket.
Listen, I'm going to save a final point for after the next break. But before I just get there, I did just want to raise a kind of tid point, because every now and again when I've criticized this kind of ubiquitous nature of T20 cricket, like there seems to be a league on now every day of the year. Sometimes people say to me, yeah, but it's no different to any other sport. And I always think they're missing the point. The difference with other sports, and let's just take football, for example, I can watch the English Premier League, watch the Bundesliga, watch Serie A, watch Liga, watch whatever La Liga, right? But I'm not seeing the same players in all of these leagues. So each league has its own individual context. So yes, people can say to me, "Oh, but it's no different to different leagues existing in other countries." Yeah, in that simplistic sense, yes. But if football ever became a case where I could see Lionel Messi turn out one day for PSG, then one day for Manchester United, then the next time for Atalanta, and then that would get very boring very quickly because nobody wants to see. And well, maybe this is the whole point. Who wants to see the same players playing everywhere all the time? I just don't buy that people want to see that. And like you said earlier on, Santoki, the IPL has a distinct UPS because that's the only place you're going to see these players. So it's they can stand aside and say, well, actually, this is what I don't know if you're going to say it's elite cricket, but this is the only place you're going to see the Indian actual cricketers. And no other league has that. No other league has that kind of value set to it.
Yeah, I think it's important. Just before we go to a break match, I wonder if the think tanks at these franchises or those in charge of cricket are hoping that football, because football at the moment as well, we are moving towards an era where players are supported more than teams. So, for instance, Cristiano Ronaldo fans who supported Man United a lot, will go on to support Al Sadd in Saudi Arabia, where he's playing for. So, could that be the vision of cricket in terms of you don't support a franchise, you support a player? So I'm a Dre Russ fan. I'm going to support whatever franchise Dre Russ plays for. So is it moving towards that sort of celeb kind of idolization of players rather than the team, which is kind of, we've seen it in football, particularly on, I think more on social media and online, where fans support a particular player. So if Lionel Messi went to Manchester United tomorrow, all the fans who were supporting him, who liked Messi, would go on to support Man United rather than stick with PSG because their loyalty is with Messi rather than the team. Is that sort of the vision for cricket, to support the player rather than the franchise? Because other than that, I mean, that still doesn't make sense to me, but at least there's some logic behind the marketing and the kind of vision. But other than that, Mash, I just don't see where this is going, basically.
You almost essentially answered this question from Mukunda, who said, do you think cricket will become like football clubs, franchise cricket? How do you think the future of cricket will look like? And you've almost, the latter part to that question, you've almost answered that. Is the way forward just following the player? I personally couldn't do that, Santoki. I'm not going to lie. You could,
unless it's a family member, I'm not supporting a player that much.
Yeah. You'll never see me wearing a Rovman Powell from every single jersey from every single club he goes to around the world. That don't make no sense to me whatsoever. But listen, let's take the final break, and then on the other side, I just want to look at how close T20 cricket is to eating itself. Let's take one more break.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So let's just wrap this up, Santoki. Right at the very beginning, or near the beginning, you spoke. I think you said a line or a phrase like, "Can each league essentially exist within its own market?" Okay, so let's look at this T20 league right now. You're right. The few highlights that I've caught of this tournament so far, crowds are up. There's excitement, and that's good to see. And let's not get away from the fact, of course, that the whole point of this T20 league is South African cricket needs the Ps. And the only way they could realistically get Ps is running this tournament. And I think all of the teams are all the teams IPL teams or owned by IPL owners? I think that's how it goes in this T20 league. So it's essentially IPL. It's a mini IPL, but in South Africa is essentially what it looks like, right? But like I say, the crowds are up. There seems a certain kind of flavor to it, maybe because it's in warm weather and all of that, whatever. Okay, but I guess what I'm saying to you is South Africa have their market. They have their own fan base coming out to watch it. There'll be the overseas, don't even know if we're allowed to say it, but there'll be overseas financial transactions taking place on matches. Let's call it like that. Let's call it that diplomatically. There'll be overseas financial transactions taking place, which will have a big viewership on the leagues like that as well. There'll be the TV rights deals, which will have an impact on that as well. And you spoke earlier on about ultimately money talks. But I guess my question then, Santoki, is how sustainable is each country's UPS? So how many seasons into the SAT20 league? Look at Big Bash. For the last however many years now, people have been saying it's too long, crowds are down. You pan to like clips of the Big Bash, and you'll see like they'll be inside like a 70,000 seater stadium with about 15,000 people or something like that. Crowds are down. The top tier Aussie players don't even play in it. So what's the point of the league exactly? You don't necessarily get top tier players even going over to play the Big Bash League. So what's the point? I'd love a Big Bash person to come on the show and say and explain what the purpose of that league still is, right? And even if we look at CPL now, CPL has been hit by COVID over the last few years. So it's only been played in certain places. And yes, they've had to kind of, what do you want to say, dilute the tournament in terms of how much travel viability there is to it now. We saw the changing of the times of matches to 10 o'clock in the morning, which kind of takes away some of the UPS of the league, because then where's the vibes at 10 o'clock in the morning, because it's just suiting the TV audience. So I guess all of what I'm saying adds to this particular question, Santoki. We said right at the start, who's watching it? Are we basically just running these leagues for an Asian market to watch the leagues? And if that's all we're running the leagues for, we might as well just have a 9-month IPL. Do you get? I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but do you get what I mean? Like, if your league isn't even running for your own country to benefit from it in terms of the people watching it, if the people in your own country ain't even really feeling it like that, or within your own region, what's the point of the league per se, other than private companies and business people just taking whatever peas they can get out of it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, and it's something we've seen in international cricket. I mean, you make a big profit if you play a Test series against India, as opposed to like a South Africa or Zimbabwe. So I think the market and the financial dynamics means you're always going to have to target the Asian market, just because of the sheer population and interest in cricket in that region and the finances it brings. I think CPL is a perfect point you raised. Playing games at 10 a.m. in the Caribbean, not many people, very minimal, are going to come out and watch games at 10 a.m. in the morning, T20 cricket. I guess anywhere in the world, you wouldn't go and watch T20 cricket at 10 a.m. in the morning. It doesn't suit the niche of the sport. But it was played because in India, it's a 7 p.m. start, which is peak time audience for TV ratings, sponsorship, advertisements. So I think that is a very viable question, Mash. And I think it's one, which would explain a lot of logic behind these franchise leagues. And I think, Mash, one important point we haven't mentioned is, we've talked about saturation of T20 cricket, which would be fine if it was in and of itself. So if January was just a month for these T20 leagues, it'd be fine. But we haven't mentioned so far, Mash, it's important to remember, South Africa forfeited their 3 ODI Super League games against Australia so this league can launch. Now, they've essentially risked World Cup qualification to host this tournament. So if we said on previous episodes, from a West Indies perspective, the ODI World Cup is the pinnacle World Cup in terms of legacy and what it means. It's built up that reputation, even in comparison to the T20 World Cup. So if the South African Cricket Board have unanimously have united and agreed to forfeit and potentially scupper any chances they have of even making a tournament to hold a franchise league, Mash, what are we meant to take from that? Are we meant to say, if you're a South African fan, are you meant to essentially say international cricket is not as important as this SA T20 league going on at the moment?
That's a good point, and I guess what I'd say, and we should put that question to our Laguni and Neil Manthorpe on South Africa on 99.94. We should put the question to them, because obviously they were super despondent at the lick down that South Africa got in Australia. But we should say to them, guys, it's all right, because your cricket board says that none of that matters anyway. because the SAT20 league is the most important thing for South African cricket. And I'm not laughing to make a joke of it. What other conclusion are you supposed to take? We cussed out Shimron Hetmeyer for missing 2 planes to miss out on a World Cup. South Africa forfeited an entire international series and potentially, essentially jeopardize even going to an ODI World Cup just to set up a T20 league. If this doesn't signal where, and again, you asked it earlier on, Santoki, in many ways, that particular issue signals where international cricket possibly is currently at for all but the nations who can afford to which is 3 of them, who can afford to just play international cricket whenever, however much of it they want to, and whenever they feel like. It's unprecedented. And as you always say, Santoki, and I'll give you the final word on it then before we wrap the show. It's unprecedented, but maybe that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I think you know what, in cricket, it's kind of like boards are watching each other to see who makes the first move. I think now you've got Cricket South Africa have done this. For instance, a worst case scenario, imagine Cricket West Indies decided to do something similar, forfeit an international series to hold a CPL tournament or something like that. It wouldn't be so taboo because the precedent has been set by Cricket South Africa doing it earlier. So now it's almost given like permission and leeway for other boards to follow suit. And obviously, if you're following the money trail, the money's coming into the franchise league, not international cricket. I mean, international cricket, most sides and boards operate at a loss, which is why for Cricket South Africa, why would you host an ODI series against Australia where you're probably just about break even when you could have a domestic T20 tournament, which brings you in millions and millions of dollars? So I think that's the question. I think it does. I think, Mash, this is just the start, the beginning. This is unprecedented territory we're in. It's early days, but I think we're going to see more and more of that rollover in the coming months and years. So essentially what we're saying, Mash, is, sorry, it's a good thing we have day jobs, because this episode will probably get us cancelled, as I said, for most franchise work or T20 cricket analysis. But I think we're just being honest, Mash. I think a lot of cricket fans are asking, where is this going? Where is this new frontier heading? And how much is too much, I guess, at the end of the day? How much T20 cricket is too much? Like, where does this put fandom, and where does this put the sport of cricket, which we've all loved and followed for years and years? Where are we heading, and what direction it's going? And from our perspective, it's not a good direction.
I guess there's no better way to kind of wrap the show, people. As ever with some of our shows that we do on 99.94, this may end up being another trilogy series that we look at. I'm fairly certain that this episode's going to get some tongues wagging and some comments sent towards us. So as ever, if you're watching this on YouTube, put them in the comments below. If you're listening to this on the podcast app of your choosing, at us, at Carib Cricket. But most importantly of all, people, like, share, review, rate, and subscribe. Until next time, stay locked in.